Hey everybody, John Brown here with you again today to tell you why Star Wars Armada is better than X-Wing. Or maybe not. Alright, first things first, let's talk about army building. So, like X-Wing, a lot of other games, you're going to have cards for your ships and then upgrades. So, for example, we have this Mon Calamari cruiser here, but of course we have a title card to make it Home 1, and we have Admiral Akbar on the ship. So this is one thing that makes the game already a little bit different than X-Wing, is that Admiral Akbar is going to be the leader of this army, basically the commander, and each side is going to have one commander on one of their ships, who basically gives a buff to the entire army, not just that ship. But if that ship is destroyed, then obviously you lose the commander as well. Now let's talk about actions. Just like in X-Wing, all of your big ships, not your squadrons, but your big ships will be able to take an action each round. So they can command squadrons. So that's something that we'll see on each big ship. They will have a actual command value. And within a certain distance, they can command that many squadrons to move and attack. Now that's really important because each one of these squadrons will be able to move or attack at the end of the round if they haven't been commanded during the round. But if you use a command action, they can do both. There is also the ability to concentrate firepower, which basically lets you roll an extra die when you attack. There is an engineering action. So each ship also has an engineering value. You can see the ship has an engineering value of 4. You can spend 1 to transfer a shield from one place to another that's been damaged, 2 to recharge a shield, or 3 to actually get rid of a damaged card. So, it's, again, a pretty valuable action. Now, larger ships are going to have more of that. But the larger ships are also going to be less maneuverable. So there are 4 speeds in the game, and this big Mon Calamari cruiser can only travel up to speed 2. And these little marks here indicate that it can basically, on this maneuver dial, move 1 time at notch 1 and then 1 time at notch 2, like so. Now I could do one way and then one the other, like that, however I want to do it. And then I would place this in a position where it's kind of locking into the base of the ship, and then I would move it along and lock it into that position. So that would be a 2-speed movement. Here, let me zoom in here, or focus in. A 2-speed movement for Home 1. And then, however, the basic maneuver action allows you, it's the main way you're going to change your speed. Move one of the notches 1 more time than you'd be allowed to go from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2 or whatever. So that's a pretty, nice thing to whenever you want to maneuver. Now another key thing is whenever you take a maneuver and you don't want to use it that round, you can save a little token and put it on your card. And cards can basically hold up to a certain value, depending on the size of the ship, a certain number of tokens. And then you can discard that token later to get a special bonus. Now you can't have 2 of the same token on a ship, but for example, if you had a maneuver token on your ship and you took a maneuver action, the maneuver token wouldn't let you both take an extra turn and change your speed. It only lets you change your speed. But that's a good way to say change your ship's speed by 2. So you can take a maneuver action to change it by 1 and get an extra click on the movement, and then use your token to get an extra change of speed if you really want to slow down or really want to speed up or whatever the case may be. And the other tokens, again, let you take less powerful versions of those actions, like, command one ship to one squadron activate or whatever. Now, one thing I forgot to mention that's super important is there are different sizes of ships that have different command values, which also determines how many of these discs that they have. So if I have a command value of 3 at the start of the game, I'm going to choose my first 3 actions. And then whenever I reveal a command, I'll do it and then put it on the pick a new one and put it in the bottom of the pile. But I'm going to be doing that 3 turns later. So the larger ships are obviously more powerful, they can command more squadrons, have more engineering value, but they're slower, less maneuverable, and you have to plan your actions ahead really far ahead of time. Alright, next we're going to go over movement and attack. So we already talked a little bit about movement and how ships are able to move. And again, the smaller and faster ones are going to be able to be more maneuverable. Now the squadrons each have a speed on them. So for example, this squadron speed is 3. So the squadrons work a little bit differently. There are 2 sides to this range ruler. And we're going to use this side, and we can basically put it down by the ship. And I'll bring the ship, or the squadron back here so you can see. And we can move in a full circle, basically. So we can put this whatever direction we want, and then move up to speed 3, and then we'd be able to attack if we'd activated it, with a command action. So that's how squadrons work. And then how many dice they roll is going to depend on what they're attacking. And this is true both for ships and squadrons. So here, focus in here. If I'm attacking another squadron, I get to roll 4 blue dice. But if I'm attacking a large ship, I get to roll 1 red. So we'll get into how the dice work, and basically the ships have to be within range 1 on here to attack. So obviously the X-Wings are more effective at taking out other fighters, which you would expect. But still quite a few of them, all being able to be activated when there are no enemy fighters to kind of screen them, can still be an effective way of taking out ships if you can get them in there, especially if you can get them behind some of the capital ships. Now the capital ships work a little bit differently, but in essence, the dice kind of function the same. So here we see that they have 4 different hull zones: the front, left, right, and the rear. Obviously the Mon Calamari cruiser wants to broadside ship, so it has much better attack on the side. And these would be the dice that would roll against another ship, while these would be the dice that it would roll attacking a squadron. So each of those are going to work a little bit differently, and when we attack from a capital ship, or any big ship that isn't a squadron, they get to attack from 2 different zones. So for example, I could attack from my right and my front zones if I had options available to attack in each space. So let's say these guys were over here. They'd gotten past my X-Wings and they were going after Home 1. Now, because all of these guys are all in my right arc, when I fire from my right arc, I'll be able to fire at all of those ships, and I'll roll those 2 blue dice. Now, blue dice are interesting, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but basically, each die not only functions a little bit differently, but has a little bit different range in general. So if I had a ship that was really far away, and that's when we're going to use this side of the ruler, we can see in close range we can use any of the color. In medium range we can use red or blue, and long range we can only use red. So if Home 1 was long distance away, so let's say it was about here, from that Victory class Star Destroyer, well, it wouldn't be able to use anything except for red dice. It wouldn't be able to roll its blue dice. But obviously if they were in closer, it'd be able to use both. So red dice are kind of nice. They have a double hit side on them, which is nice. Blue dice have more accuracy sides, and we'll get into how accuracy works in a little bit. And black dice, the close range dice, they have a hit and a crit side, some blanks, but then just a lot of basic hits. Another nice thing with these big ships is, let's say for example I was up close like that. Now right now, the Victory class Star Destroyer is actually in both my right and my front arc, so I could fire twice at that same ship. But if we had a situation, like this, I then would have a choice. I could fire from my side arc at the fighters and then my front arc at the Victory class, or both at the Victory class. So that's kind of how the big ships work. Now, the reason why that accuracy I was talking about is so important is because you're going to have defense on your capital ships and some of your squadrons. Like, for example, Luke and Han both had some defense tokens, and that's these symbols here. So they can do different things like redirect damage from a shield to another shield. And if you would use it for that, you would flip it over. They can, there's a brace action that halves the total damage. So, you're going to want to have concentrated fire on ships with defense, hitting them multiple times in a round to take them out. Now, you could discard a flipped over token in order to get that action again, but then it's gone from the game, so you're burning through your ship systems. And then there are other tokens that do different things, but again, I just want to give you kind of a basic idea of how this works. Now, just like X-Wing, after you get through a ship's shields, and we get a section down to 0, and then we do damage on the ship, it'll be dealt cards that represent actual damage. Now, this Mon Calamari cruiser is a pretty big ship with 8 hull, so once it's dealt 8 cards, then it will be destroyed. Now, criticals work a little bit differently in this game, though, than in X-Wing. For one thing, critical hits do not count for fighter squadrons at all, whether you are attacking a fighter squadron or a fighter squadron is attacking a capital ship. There are exceptions to that. You can have guys with special abilities, like Luke has this bomber here that, while attacking a large ship, each of your critical damage icons adds 1 damage, and you can resolve a critical effect. So again, criticals work differently. When you hit with a critical, you can deal out a face-up damage card like you would in X-Wing. However, you only get to resolve 1 critical effect per round, and you also, interestingly enough, have different critical effects. Some ships are going to have effects that are better than just a regular critical hit. So even if you roll 5 critical hits, you're only going to be able to resolve 1 effect. And again, if you're attacking with fighters or against fighters, criticals will just do nothing. So certain dice are going to be better in certain situations, like the black dice that have a lot more actual hits, and then that one with a hit and a crit, which would basically just count as one hit. They're really great, against or with fighters to get more hits. But the effect that you resolve is up to you, but you only get one of them. So again, crits are very differently. So there are some basics on how attacking and defending is going to work, but here's the real key thing too that is super important to mention. Ships attack before they move. So if I'm this one calamari cruiser crew, you might say I might want to fly up and get in range and attack that Victory class Star Destroyer, but I have to attack before I move. So especially if I'm back here, well, now I have to think about it. In X-Wing, I just move up and then attack. But here I have to say, if I move up into the ship's front arc, and if I end up just flying straight in to get into attack range, if this Victory class Star Destroyer hasn't activated yet, now I'm flying right into the teeth of its attack, its strongest up front. So just one more aspect that's different about the game is you have to plan out your turns differently, the way that you do your actions and you move, but you attack before you move, which is another key difference. Lastly, when you're playing the full game of Armada, you're going to bring objectives. So you're going to pick an objective of each type, and then each person will bring one of these, and then one person basically is going to show their objectives, and the other player is going to pick one. So the objectives can vary quite a bit. You can build your squad around certain objectives. Your opponent has to choose an objective that they think will work for them and their build. So there's also more ways to win the game in X-Wing than just blowing your enemy up. Of course, that is going to be something you're going to want to do, but there's only a certain number of rounds in Armada when you're playing it officially, and those objectives can be worth a lot of points and can change the way the game is played. So that's nowhere near everything, but those are some big differences. The way you build your squads, especially the way that you attack then move, the options you have with the fleet commander, and the options you have with objectives. What do you want to bring, what you have to be prepared for, and, there is just, in both games there's a lot of strategy. But this game, it's a bit more slower paced. I would say this game is a little bit more strategic, while X-Wing is a little bit more tactical. Where X-Wing, you can, try to quickly recover, and it's all about where's your opponent going to be, and where are you going to be in the timing of who moves and all of that. Whereas in here, you kind of have to think even more turns ahead. Another potential positive for me is I already mentioned feeling you can put, a crew of people on a ship and whatever and give ships personality like you can in Star Trek, and like you can with the epic ships in X-Wing. But another thing is, like, for example, here are two ships that are the same model, and they have similar stats, 4 hull, similar text, but you notice one of them has more red dice, while the other one doesn't have any. Now, this is a ship that has quite a good amount of attack for its size, but it only has 4 hull. So with this ship, with the close range dice, you're encouraged to kind of fly in, try to get behind your enemy, and do as much damage as possible, and try to protect it maybe for as long as you can, but play very aggressively. While this ship, if you can stay at a distance and use your red lasers, maybe attack with both arcs at an angle from far away, you can attack with maybe 3 red lasers and protect the ship with only 4 hull. And basically I feel like there's just more, because the ships have so many more things that can make them diverse. The ships have a little bit more diversity and personality than maybe they do in X-Wing. So that's kind of, what I would say to people who are trying to decide between the two. Maybe they already have X-Wing and they're deciding if they want to get into Armada. It is a very different game. The pacing of it is different, the strategy of it is different, and the way you have to think about your moves and the way you have to think about all the different things with the squadrons and the ships, and planning ahead with not only where your position is going to be, but what your actions are going to be. How big of ships do you want? Do you want faster ships sneaking behind? And just, it's a little bit more strategy as opposed to tactics, in my opinion. So there's kind of an overview of what makes Armada different, and it's really up to you to decide. I personally like Armada a little bit more, but that's just the way that I like to play. I kind of like that more slower plodding pace. But it's up to you to decide, what will work for you, and hopefully this video will help you, see some of the differences and decide if Armada is something for you. Alright, thanks a lot for watching, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye!